went deeper into the chart too.
Yeah, we went deeper, but it was that combination. With that combination, you don't want that person as your student. I mean, that's a combination for, you
It's
know.
Rahu in the 9th house, wasn't it?
I can't remember exactly. There was 2 malefics. It was a it was
3 months ago or something.
Yeah.
Pretty intense.
Before the
But so, you know, the perfect people end up with where they're supposed to be to give the perfect person what they're supposed to get. So I'm protected from that one. Okay. So, we go to page 3 in this handout. And technique number 1, start with the proper mantra. So our first mantra is the Ganesh mantra when we look at a chart. Why should we say a Ganesh mantra? What's Ganesh have to do with Jyotish?
remove obstacles to see clearly what it shows in the chart.
Okay, one opinion.
Didn't he also, I know this one image where he's writing out the chart. He's like the scribe somehow, or the knowledge of Jyotish. I don't know how to say it.
Okay.
Here's the Lord of categories and differentiation.
Okay.
Helps you see make distinctions.
What do you guys think? Why Ganesh?
He's just kind of friendly all around.
He's a friendly fat guy. It's good to be friends with.
Look on the bright side.
Lots of coffee. What do you think, Eric?
Anything to do with Ketu?
Why do we worship? What's Ganesh have to do with Jyotish?
He's Ketu, he's calculation, he's accuracy, but he's also, it's the doorway, you know, you can't undertake anything auspicious without the blessings of God. Ketu is also the, it's the doorway.
So Ganesh is the doorway. He's who allows us through a doorway. And one of our main things is we want to help people get through their doorways. We want to help them move over their obstacles. And we also, he's Ketu and he relates to mathematical calculations. And so from our part, we want to worship Ganesh to make sure that we're looking at the right chart. To making sure that the mathematics are correct behind the chart. To get that, so we're looking at the right chart with the right information. And to make sure that we can remove the obstacles of the person that we're trying to help. Because if we can't remove their obstacles, then why are we even studying this stuff? You know, we might as well study something where we can actually be more useful with. So Ganesh, and I have 2 Ganesh mantras here. The short one is Om Hring Jyotir Ganeshaya Namah. Om Shring Jyotir Ganeshaya Namaha. Yeah. And then there's a longer one there. It's sometimes people call it Ganesh Gayatri, but it's actually Ganesh Jagati. And that's one of my favorites, but it depends on your situation. If you have time to do a mantra that long, then you can do the mantra that long. Otherwise, you do the short mantra. You know, if someone throws the chart right there, I say a quick Ganesh mantra. Sometimes I even do shorter than this. Om Gam Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Namaskaya Namaha. You know, and I begin. So it depends on how much time we have when we're studying the chart, how much we can, you know, pray to Ganesh. So the short one, that's a good Jyotish one for Ganesh. The longer one, Om Garnanam Tva Ganapatim Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upama Shravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anah Shrunvanutabi Siddhasadanam. Beautiful Ganesh mantra.
Can you make a little recording on your website? That would be cool.
Narsimha has one already.
Of this one?
Yes. And his is a little bit faster, but probably much better in pronunciation.
Do you know this, the one I learned from heart? Eknandaya vidmahe Vakrtundaya dhimahi Tano Tanti prachodayat.
That's it's a Ganesh. It's a kind of a formula mantra that I don't know if it's mantra mahoditi itself or derived from formula in mantra mahoditi, where it's, you know, you say the certain name in a certain formula and in a certain way. This right here, the Ganesh Jagati, is Rig Veda. It comes from the 19 verses to Brihaspati, and this is worshipping Ganesh as a guru, as a teacher. So this is an official Brahmin mantra. That one is a little bit more tantric. It's, you know, it's taught in the tantras. It's not as an official mantra. This is a mantra that's said in almost every puja that's done.
This takes some learning. So you said
Takes a little bit of learning.
To pronounce it,
Narasimha, yeah.
it's on his website.
Yeah. But this top one is the short one if you don't have the time to say a longer one. And it all depends on your on the situation. Is the chart right in front of you? Read it now. It's better to say a quick mantra to Ganesh. They'll even be happy that you're saying some prayers before you say it. So Ganesh, then we say a Surya mantra. Why do we say a Surya mantra?
Sun. The light.
The light?
Can't see the chart without
What can't we see?
the sun. Can't see the truth, the vidya, the atman, the soul. One of those words is earlier.
What do you think, Luna? Why do we worship the sun? It's all right. Everything. You know, I'm just thinking more.
The sun.
Why should we worship the sun?
I was going to say the same thing she did, which is to bring more light to our mind and to the reading of the chart.
Okay. What do you think, Eric?
It's the Jyotir Vidya.
Is it the Jyotir Vidya?
No. Jyotish is worshipping the Jyotir Vidya. There's no Jyoti without Surya.
Without
Surya
Surya.
is like the source of lunar.
Is that why we worship him just before we read a chart, though? See, because from that level, that's why we worship the sun every morning. Every morning we worship the sun because that's the light in our life. But why do we worship it just before we look at a chart?
Is it to help burn any, help fire, build the fire for remedies? Purify?
You're getting close.
Yeah, to open up your eye.
Because the thing is, if you've lost something, like let's say you lost your keys, you don't know where you put them, and you're looking for them to try and find them, say a Surya mantra to the sun, and the sun will help you find where you put your keys. So it's the sun that helps us find things. It's the light that opens up the dark corners. So we say a mantra to the sun because it uncovers, because we can look at a chart and sometimes charts open up right to you. They tell you everything about the person. Other times you can look at a chart and it's just a bunch of squiggly lines on the paper. It's not talking to you. It's not opening up. That sun mantra is just opening that up so that it becomes alive, so that you're not just seeing squiggly lines on a piece of paper, but that it's turning into a yantra and you're seeing into a human being. You're seeing into the flow of someone's life. So it's helping you find that life force in there, and it's helping you find whatever we're going to be looking for these doshas that we need to cure. It's helping you find and see them. It's giving you that whole picture of the life force. So we say the sun mantra to find the person in the chart, to see the issues in the chart, for us to be able to see what's there, to get the juice out of that chart. We need the sun. So you, Luna, when we were talking about Ganesh, you said he gets over the obstacles and helps us see what's in the chart. He helps us over the obstacles, but it's the sun that helps us see what's in the chart. Ganesh is helping us to not get lost in the chart, but the sun is helping us to see in there. And here I just have a short mantra. This is one I use a lot. Om Namah Suryaya. Very simple. There's a longer version of it. Om Namah Suryaya Mama Kama Prakasakaya Prakasakaya Satyam Bruhi Bruhi Swaha. Which just is lighting that up a little bit. But Om Namah Suryaya, or you can also do Gayatri mantra. Gayatri will do the same thing. So Ganesh, then Gayatri. And then we do the Parampara mantra. Or if there's not a Parampara mantra, the person would do a Guru mantra, which the Parampara mantra connects you to the Guru. So it's very much the same as a Guru mantra. Why do we do the Parampara mantra?
To pay respects to the Guru.
To open your consciousness up to the lineage.
Ooh. Your hands are doing the right. To open, not just the lineage is kind of behind you, coming in, you know. So it's coming both ways. It's opening us up to where the teachings have come from, and it's connecting us all the way into that source. And at the same time, Patanjali says the teacher of the original, the first teacher was Om. And that Om is this third eye. So that this Guru mantra is opening our third eye to have this intuitive sense, to be able to understand the chart, and to have the guidance of the lineage and the higher masters to take us through the chart so that we can be guided properly, so that we can remember the teachings, everything. I mean, look at all these handouts. You know, look at this book. I mean, that's a lot to remember. It's Jupiter that's ruling the brain and your ability to contain all this and use it as wisdom. So that parampara, the mantra of the tradition, is said at this point. And of this tradition, the mantra is Hare, Rama, Krishna. Hare, Jupiter, Rama, Sun, Krishna, Moon, the three Sattvic planets. And so, just before reading, I put my hands in the proper mudra and I say Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Rama Krishna. If, for example, someone was initiated by Amaji, and Amaji told them Namah Shivaya is your mantra, do nothing else, then at that point they do Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Or if whatever the tradition is, at that point that's where that tradition's mantra comes. That's where you say your parampara, or your tradition mantra, to get the guidance of the gurus and to open the third eye. Okay.
What about this Janaka Sarakshari?
The Janaka Sarakshari
that's
Hare Rama Krishna.
That's the name.
Because Hare Rama Krishna was taught by Rishi Janaka to Rama. That's the origin of that mantra. And Rishi Janaka was an incarnation of Varuna. Okay. So we all got the first thing when interpreting a chart is getting the proper energy, the vibe, get the vibration set, right? And these are the vibes that we need to call in. Number 2, look at the lagna and the lagnesh. Why do we look at the lagna and the lagnesh first? What's the importance?
It symbolizes the self as the first house, and what is the first influence on the self?
I give you credit for trying hard, Luna. You're doing good.
It sets up the whole chart. So it's
How's it set up the whole chart?
Well, it sets up what the good lords will be, what the bad lords will be.
That's the big thing. It's setting up the situation of the whole chart. Because of the lagna, a certain planet's becoming the 8th lord. Because of the lagna, a certain planet's becoming the 9th lord. So one planet's becoming the one who's going to give you blessings. Another planet's becoming the one who's going to give you pain and disease. Because of the lagna. So it's tying you in. That's the point where this soul has been tied into a body. And everything is acting upon it in the way it's acting upon it based on that lagna. So the first thing is we look at the lagna and we take into account what is the lagna, what are the situations of all the other planets. Who's the 8th lord? Who's the 9th lord? And now, at first, you're going to have to say, oh, so their person is this lagna. Who's the 8th lord? Who's the 9th lord? After a period of time, you see, oh, it's Gemini lagna. That means Saturn is both 8th and 9th lord. You just know already in your head. You know, it becomes second knowledge, which lagnas have which lordships. At first, though, it becomes a matter of having to calculate everything each time until it becomes rote in the mind. Then we look at the lagnesh, the lord of the lagna, where it's placed. And we see where the mind, where the energy of the person is going. And we look at that lagnesh and we look at the lagna, and that's going to tell us the guna of the person. We look at the planets, the lagna itself, the lagnesh, and the planets aspecting the lagna, situated in the lagna, and we're going to tell the guna of the person. And that guna of the person is going to set everything apart. Because what a sattvic person is going to do with a certain combination versus what a tamasic person is going to do with a combination are totally different things. So we look at the guna of the planets associated with the lagna. And it sets the stage for everything.
Of the lagna and the lagnesh.
Well, the lagna lord has a certain guna. The sign of the lagna has a certain guna. Planets aspecting it have a certain guna. So we're taking all these factors into account and weighing them together. You know, if we have 4 sattvic indications and 1 tamas indication, we're talking about primarily a sattvic person. Where if it's 3 tamasic factors, 1 sattvic and 1 rajasic, we're looking at more of a tamasic energy happening. So we're taking in and adding them all together and seeing what's becoming predominant.
So if you've got a sattvic lagna,
Mm-hmm.
and no tamasic influences on it, but then your lagnesh has more tamasic, I mean, how would you interpret that? Would you...
You take the fun, you add up everything together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, would it just be that maybe...
I mean, if it's a sattvic sign and lord ruling the lagna, but it's gone and it's conjunct Rahu, Mars, and Saturn in the 6th house, it's going to be a tamasic person. Okay. If it was a Saturn-ruled lagna, and Saturn went conjunct the Sun, Moon, and Jupiter, it's going to bring more sattva to the person. So we got to take everything into account. And generally, you get a pretty good feel. So this is what we look at first. We look at the lagna and we get a feel of the guna of the person. We get our first understanding of what the planets are doing in the house in the chart based on house lordships. And we look at where the lagnesh has gone to see where the intelligence has gone. I think it was in the house chapter, we looked at lagna lord going to the different houses according to Parashara. And he talked, lagna lord in this house, the person is this way. You know, so in this way, where that lagnesh is going, that's the main, the lagnesh becomes the D-Shakti, the intelligence of the person, where they're applying their mind. And so that's telling us where the intelligence is directed in the person's life. The point that we've taken note of where we saw the house lords, who's the lord of the 8th house, who's the lord of the 9th, and we're beginning to say, oh, so now the lord of the 8th house is gone to the 7th. Now the lord, and we know the 8th lord and the 7th, that's going to be 8th house energy with the 7th house. We see where's the 9th house lord gone, and we start looking at where these planets are placed. And at first you don't want to start interpreting. Not yet, because you got to take in the basic foundation of the chart. but you have to let it go into your mind. It becomes an imprint, almost a visualization. And because this chart is a yantra. So as we look at this chart, we just take into account, so it's Aries lagna. And for the recording, we're looking at the chart of Eric. And what's the birth data?
December 23rd,
December 23rd,
1978.
78.
1:28
1:28
p.m.
p.m.
Chicago, Illinois.
Chicago, Illinois. And we're looking at an Aries lagna. And for Aries lagna, we see that Jupiter's the 9th lord, Mars is the 8th lord, Mercury is the 6th lord. So we're just taking into account. Jupiter's also the 12th lord. So we just get a general concept of lordship. We look at where the lagnesh has gone, and it's Mars. Mars has gone to the 9th house with the sun. Sun's a spiritual planet. Okay? So it's a tamasic planet conjunct a spiritual planet in a good house. What are the aspects that we have to the lagna? We have Venus aspecting.
Jupiter.
We have, how's Jupiter aspecting? It's a Kendra, but it's not aspecting.
Rahu.
Rahu has an aspect. So that's giving a tamasic energy. Mercury. That's Rashi. First we're looking at Graha. So we got our Grahas. From Graha we just have Rahu. Then if we look at Rashi, we see Rahu and Saturn. We see Mercury. And we see Ketu. Rashi aspect. All fixed signs are aspecting the movable signs. Fixed signs don't have enough energy. This has too much energy. So the interaction is exchanging. So we see a tamasic planet, tamasic lord, but the tamasic lord is conjunct the sattvic planet in a good house. So this almost becomes sattvic here. But then we have tamasic indication here. We have a rajasic indication there. So we're leaning towards a little bit more of a tamasic attitude. Yes? Do you see that the factors?
Mm-hmm.
We're getting both factors, but the energy is going to the 9th house with the sun. So it's all about philosophy. 9th house is philosophy. Sun, all about spirituality. But is there a high motivation to actually make things happen? To get things, to sustain dharma and to accomplish everything in a sattvic way?
In a sattvic way? No.
The sattva is not fully there.
No.
That's
But
because of the
but
lagna,
action
right?
is there.
Because of all the planets aspecting it. We're looking at all the indications.
Okay. You're including both Rashi and Graha.
Yeah. Everything. And the Lord, and its placed, and who it's conjunct. So that's just a general, thing.
So why did you say
You don't like that, huh?
does tamasic?
It's there, right?
Does a lot of tamasic stuff mean he's not motivated?
It shows definitely a lack of motivation.
Okay, but it doesn't mean he won't. But he's involved in these things. So
But it's a well placed lagnesh. So what he's focused on is very good, very
that's where his
philosophical,
mind is.
very spiritual. But the motivation we see from the tamas aspects, it's a slow amount of motivation. We take them and we combine them together. I didn't look at this ahead of time, man. I just said, throw up your chart. I haven't looked at it in like 5 years, Okay, next technique. But we all see how that's what we're looking at first. And then, so that's our technique number 2. Technique number 3 is we take account what's where in the chart. And we're seeing Jupiter's in the 4th house. It's in its exaltation, but it's retrograde. So it's a, what's it called?
Not Nichabanga.
Uchabanga.
Uchabanga.
Uchabanga. It's a reverse of exaltation.
So Jupiter retrograde is weaker.
It's debilitated. Yeah.
Okay.
But what about it being 3 times stronger? Because
Yeah.
It's 3 times stronger, so
I was wondering that.
It is 3 times stronger, but it's 3 times. You see, the thing is, Jupiter. The thing about Jupiter retrograde is, now we're going off the main topic, but Jupiter shows contentment.
Contentment?
Yeah. Wherever Jupiter is what you're happy with in life. It's where you're content. But when Jupiter becomes retrograde, wherever he's placed, he shows what you're not really content with. It's where you're working extra hard to get content. Whenever there's a retrograde regression in a planet, it becomes 3 times as strong to give its effect because it's not happy with what it's getting. So it keeps working on that area to get something that it wants out of it. There's some karmic debt happening there.
It's the 4th house, so it's the house of mother and home.
Happiness and home.
House of mother, house of home. It's a house of education. It's the house of Aparavidya. It's the house of physical plane education, and it's not satisfied. So in this
That's
way,
only with exalted planets that are retrograde, right?
it becomes this is all retrogressions.
But retrogressions in general?
Become 3 times as strong. When it's retrograde, it's when it's exalted in retrograde, then it just becomes Uchabanga, meaning it's giving some Nietzsche results, meaning this is going to be like if it was debilitated and retrograde, then it would be not good getting good. It'd mean he'd easily find the results of what that planet wants. But in this situation, the more he's looking for it, the farther it's getting. Then we see Rahu and Saturn are in the 5th house. We're just taking this into our mind. We see Moon is in the 6th house. Let it go into your mind. Venus is in the 7th. Mercury is in the 8th. Sun, Mars in the 9th. Ketu is in the 11th. So try and imprint this into your mind. It's a yantra. And so we have to just know, like, shut your eyes. Where's his Venus? Don't look.
Seven.
What's in the 8th house?
Mercury?
What's in the 11th? Who was in the 5th?
Rahu and Saturn.
Rahu and Saturn. Where's Mars?
And the 10th with the and 9th with the sun.
9th with the sun. So at this point, we just want to get so that when we start looking at other things, we have an idea. We don't have to be looking all the time. Like, we got to let it come into our mind so that the information can be churning in our mind. So at this point, we looked at the lagna and lagnesh and we let the chart come into our mind. And if you start interpreting too much in this Jupiter, notice how when we started talking about this Jupiter, we're only looking at this Jupiter. The whole chart didn't go into our mind, did it? So at first, don't start interpreting it. Take account of where everything is placed. Let it all come in. And then at the next layer, start to go deeper into it.
Isn't there a yoga?
We're getting to yogas.
The 3 benefics in the 3 houses across the planet. Isn't that a yoga?
3.
The 6, 7, and 8 have benefics in it.
That's good. Generally, it's opposite of sun or moon.
Lagnati yoga.
It's a lagnati yoga.
Yeah.
So that's our next one, which is number 4. Look at planet conjunctions. First, we got the imprint of the yantra. It's a yantra. This is his whole life. Anything he learns, anything he does, any enlightenment he gets, any suffering, it's all right here. So we got to let it come into our mind. That way our subconscious can start working on it, as well as our conscious mind. Then we start looking at yogas, conjunctions. And as I say here, take the time to research the combinations. If you have the ability, don't just go off and get too stuck in an area. Look, Rahu and Saturn in the 5th house. That's a yoga for, what is it? It's Pitri dosha? This is a Pitri dosha right here, showing problems with the ancestors. Rahu Saturn. We know that it's 2 malefics conjunct. We see Sun and Mars conjunct in the 9th house. So if we see Sun and Mars conjunct in the 9th house, Sun is Lord of the 5th house. Mars is Lord of the 1st. So 2 trinal lords, is there a Kendra aspect to it? No. So it's not giving us a, it's not getting that.
What about Mars? That's
Mars.
a Kendra. The Lord of the First.
It's okay. So it is the Lord of the 1st. So it is a Kendra. So there's a very auspicious yoga forming there. Dharma Karmati. So at this point, we begin taking in the yogas, and so what does Dharma Karmati mean? It's showing a lot of light, a lot of auspicious. There's going to be a lot of blessings coming from that. So later, when we start talking about Mars Dasha or Sun Dasha, we all automatically know that there's good situation happening with this. Where, and that's Mars, good situation happening. So it's a malefic, but we're not talking about how bad it is, because we're seeing it's in a good yoga, in a good house. We're getting the feeling of how good it is. Where this Rahu and Saturn, what kind of feelings are you getting from that yoga?
Yucky feelings.
Yucky feelings. At this point, if you don't know what it means, take the time to research the combination. Before you even go deeper into the chart, this is where you want to understand the yogas before even going deeper. Take the time to learn about the fact that this is a Pitri dosha and it's going to cause suffering related to the 5th house. We see Rahu is the Lord of the 11th, which is the natural Badak for Aries. And Saturn is the, so it's the Lord of the 10th, the 11th there.
So both Saturn.
Yeah. And now also at this point, when it's, as well as yogas, begin to take in, so look for Parivartana yogas at this point, before you go even farther, because if you start interpreting something, there's a Parivartana yoga, it totally changes everything that you're going to think. So don't even go too far without looking. So at this point we see Moon is in Mercury's house, Jupiter is in Moon's house. So there's nothing happening there. Rahu and Saturn are in Sun's house, Sun is in Jupiter's house, Jupiter's in Sun, so we don't see anything. Venus is in its own house.
But Sun is in the 9th house with Mars, so that we felt that that was actually a good house for spirituality and philosophy. So maybe that's something good in combination with the 5th house.
It's the only thing that's it's definitely helping the 5th house. Luckily, he has, when we get the curses, he has many beneficial things that get him out of that curse happening in the chart.
Now the curse is because there are 2 malefics in the 5th?
We'll get the curses soon. Right now we're just looking at yogas.
There's also, it's a Raja Yoga to have Rahu conjunct a Kendra Lord in the chart.
It's not
Okay.
a Kendra Lord. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yes. Oh.
And I have noticed that in Shani Pratyantara dashas, all these things are really good.
Well, Raja Yoga should put you in the position of, when you say good, you should be more prosperous and you should be associated with rich, prosperous people.
Yeah, like the most knowledge and also like physical level prosperity often comes in Shani.
Okay. So now as we're looking at this, we're taking all this into account. But where I'm going, Luna, is look at the lordships. Look at what the Sumbandhas are happening at this level. We're not going, we're looking at each of these yogas somewhat separately. And so Venus is in its own sign. But Mercury is connected to Mars. So how is Mars connected to Mercury? We got to look at the Sumbandhas happening. Sun is connected to Jupiter. How's Jupiter connected to Sun? There's not, there's 6-8. There's not, we want to see how tight things are, how separate they are. Moon. It's in Mercury's sun. There's not much connection happening. Who's aspecting who? We see Rahu has aspect with Sun and Mars, but there's nothing coming back, right? Who else is aspecting who? Moon's not aspecting anybody. Mercury's not aspecting anybody. Jupiter's aspecting Mercury. So there's a Sumbandha happening there. We're just taking the connections and the relationships into our mind. Sometimes you find that one planet has Sumbandha with everybody. Sometimes there's planets that have Sumbandha with nobody. No Sumbandha is not good.
So is it a Sumbandha because the fourth house is Cancer, and it's with Jupiter, and then it's...
Jupiter aspects trines. So he's aspecting Mercury. So he's creating a Sumbandha with Mercury.
And then also...
So that makes Mercury so much better. And because it's Jupiter that's creating a Sumbandha, it's definitely lifting Mercury up and making Mercury do good things down here. If his only Sumbandha was with Rahu or Saturn, then we'd have some trouble with that Mercury. We're looking at this level of how the planets are interacting with each other, so that we're getting an understanding. So Ketu's in Rahu's sign. Do we see any other Sumbandhas? Who else is connecting with who? Saturn has a third house aspect on Venus.
Well, the sixth house, is that Mercury?
This is Moon. Eighth house,
Mercury with the moon.
Moon is in Mercury's sign, but it doesn't, have any Sumbandha. Doesn't have any aspects.
Well, doesn't it have aspect of... Well, the Lord of the fourth is in...
It has Rashi aspect with Sun and Mars. For something good with Moon, we really want Mercury or Venus or Jupiter. We want some benefic aspecting it.
So the moon doesn't have any benefic aspect.
Doesn't have any benefic aspect, but it also doesn't have any malefic aspect.
Right.
And if we look...
We don't count Rashi Drishti.
Yeah, we can count Rashi Drishti. It has Sun and Mars. There. So it has a little malefic. Yeah, if you want to look at that.
Do we look at where the planets are in the houses to the moon, like 2 and 12 on either side of it?
We definitely see. Venus is second from it. So Venus is supporting the mind.
Yeah.
So anytime a Venus dasha comes, it's going to be supporting the mind. We see that Rahu and Saturn are 12th from it. So this shows that the mind wastes its time on this negativity here. Not only is it in the 5th house, but the mind is wasting energy on it. That which is 12th from the moon is wasting the moon's energy, which is the mind's energy.
Is that, even if it's really good stuff going on there?
If it's a good stuff, then who cares about wasting your mind on good stuff?
Okay.
If it's Jupiter there, then you're thinking about your guru all the time, wasting your mind thinking about the guru. That's not that bad of a... It's not you wouldn't call it a waste of time anymore.
Just
where you're spending a lot of time. This is spending a lot of time, but because it's a malefics, it becomes wasting. You can also see the same thing from the sun. Has Saturn ruling the second, has Mercury 12th from it. So this is the Atma. The Atma is putting a lot of energy into learning. Mercury. Spending a lot of time. Okay.
So second, I have never heard that. Second from sun or moon. Moon would be the mind, sun the soul.
We talked about this in the yoga section.
You did? Spending time and wasting time?
Yeah.
Didn't absorb it.
We talked about it just before.
Bounced off.
We talked about it just before the Raja Yogas, because the important thing is the sun initiates a Raja Yoga, and the moon sustains a Raja Yoga. And so the thing is, The sun is in a position where it's strong enough to initiate a Raj Yoga, but the moon has this situation where it's unless this gets a remedy, it's not going to be able to sustain Raja Yoga. And so we talked about it in the Raja Yoga section because of that.
Do you do any remedies at all?
Of course.
What'd you ask?
If he does any remedies.
Okay, so that's what we've looked at now. And then, next we look at the moon's nakshatra. And as we were talking about before, the moon's nakshatra is the filter through which the mind looks at the world. What's our nakshatra? Hasta.
Hasta. Moon Lord.
Huh?
Moon Lord.
Moon is the Vimshotri Dasha Lord. Who is the deity Lord?
Savitur.
Who's the Lord? And what's it mean?
It's the form of the sun that enlivens the universe. It's
Our Lord and Savior.
the luminosity before dawn that's prayed to in the Gayatri.
Savitur Varenya.
Hot Savitur Varenya. So, what are the filters that he looks through?
Sattvic.
This level we're not looking sattvic or tamasic. You see there's a little tamasic tendency there. And he does lots of meditation and that kind of thing to help with that.
Tamasic, where are you pointing?
When we looked at the lagna and the lagnesh, that's where we're looking at the guna. Okay. Here we're looking...
You look at the guna of the mind.
At that level, it's a little bit different. At that level, and I didn't get to talk about this in the nakshatra section, it's because dasha is changing the guna in that reality. You know, and there's guna of the mind, and then there's the guna of the dasha and their interaction. So it's changing. Where when you're looking at the lagna, you're looking at that natural tendency, and then then you see the mind's fluctuation through the dashas, and there's
and just the difference between lagna and chandra in general.
Mm-hmm. But what are the glasses?
Oh, I think it's the ability to create and transform, and has control over his mind and body, and it starts with his hands.
And okay.
Hasta is the
So
hand, right?
when he looks at things, so how do you think? Like, is it more pessimistic, or what's his view when he's looking at the universe? How's he looking at it? As a viewpoint.
Capable.
Very capable. How can I accomplish this? How can I make this happen? How can I learn this? How can I give energy to this? So it's a very positive, enlightening aspect, yeah?
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to Aries, in my opinion.
This is the filter of the mind, of which the prana is led. Which when we look at the lagna, we're looking at where the lagnesh is placed. And we're seeing that, there he's focused on philosophy. And it's conjunct the sun, so there's spirituality there, and it's a very spiritual philosophy. We're looking at that, we're looking at an external level. When we start looking at the moon's nakshatra, we're looking at an internal psychological processing factor. I can sit there and I can say, interesting shawl. And you could sit there and say, what's wrong with it? And if I said the same thing to him in the same tone, he could be like, I got it from, so-and-so place. He made it like this, and it has this energy in it that's, can totally be... It's all about how your mind filtered that comment. This is what we're looking at with the moon nakshatra. Very different than the lagna, okay? At the same time, we got to look at the moon's house. So, moon in the 5th house shows a person who's always speculating about the future. Oh, I wonder what it would be like if it was like this. Oh, I wonder, always creative, looking ahead, things of that nature. Moon in the 6th house. 6th house is the house of enemies, house of diseases. A very argumentative mind.
No, I'm not.
Would rather disagree about something to discuss it than agree with it to discuss it. 7th house, if the moon was there, it'd always be thinking about relationship and how people can get along and entertainment and things of this nature. 8th house moon feels very vulnerable. If you say the wrong thing, they get hurt very easily. It's 9th house moon is very philosophical, likes to think about philosophy, talk philosophy. So we got to look at the moon placement, both the nakshatra as well as the house. Moon in the 6th, moon in the 8th. Be careful what you say. Because they can easily interpret it wrong.
Is that true of 12th too?
Not so much. At least not from my experience. Moon in the 12th house likes its own space. But if they've come to you, then apparently they want you to talk about it. So it's, it has an isolation energy. They feel a little bit of isolated. They like their distance. If it's a well-placed moon, then they enjoy the time that they're isolated. If it's a weak moon, then they're, suffering from isolation. It's not going to hurt you. Where this 6th and 8th house, the interaction with them can sometimes be a little tricky. It's very important to know, because as we talk, he'll easily disagree with anything that we're going to say, even if we're spot on, just because it's the nature of his mind.
Now he's going to not do that.
He hasn't been doing it.
I think what you're saying is really
But it's important to notice the shade that the mind's going through, as well as the house that it's going into, and what the nature of this mind is. Because we got to talk to this person. And we got to talk about some delicate things. We got to talk about their life. If you don't get how they think, then you're not going to be talking to them the way that they need to be talked to. And unless we can talk to them the way that they need to be talked to, they're not going to hear everything we have to say. So if we see an argumentative moon, we got to make sure that we're agreeing with everything that they say. We say yes, and then we can say something opposite. But at least we got to start with yes. He says, no, I'm not argumentative. And we say, yes, you're not. But sometimes you like to debate about, da-da-da-da-da. In this way. Before we start talking to the person. That way we can be on the same page with them and really feel them.
Doesn't Gail have this? Did she have that in the 6th?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think she does.
I can't remember. And let's see. Here I talk about the Constitution a little bit. We're going to skip that. Okay. So, note on sensitivity. Next page, page 6. So not only do we have to understand how they think, but we really have to watch what we say. And I'm going to give 2 examples. One I've probably given before. One's the story of, it was a woman on the phone, and I told her, oh, you're going to inherit a large amount of money from your father in the next few months. And I gave her the date, exactly when. And I didn't realize that if she is going to inherit money from her father, it means her father's going to die. I didn't think that far ahead, And it was devastating to her. because her father had cancer and she was doing everything to try and save him. So I totally devastated her. What would have been much better is to say, how's your father's health? And start discussing from there before I say, you're going to get an inheritance from your father pretty soon. Just something now that I would never blurt out right away. I'd think a little bit deeper about it. That's one of my biggest mistakes that I ever made. The woman was, devastated. And she was in a very sensitive state as it was. A famous astrologer that I know, he made a comment once when he first started doing readings. And I watched him make this comment. It was an 18-year-old girl's chart. And we were in a store. He was trying to get a job doing readings in this store. Yeah. And the manager had us read the employees' charts. And, that way the employees could be like, yeah, this guy's good. And, he would know whether to have this guy do readings or not. It was an 18-year-old girl. He looked at the chart. He's like, oh, she has this and this yoga. Means she's going to marry somebody that she doesn't love and have a kid outside the marriage. And just started going on and on. Like, she was 18 and, you don't talk about... Yeah. And apparently there was something going on with her and the manager as well. So it was, it was really the wrong thing to just blurt out. Most likely the manager was the guy that she doesn't love, and someone she marries somebody that she doesn't love and has a child outside the pregnancy. That's the yoga.
Outside the marriage.
Outside the marriage, because she doesn't love the partner. It's kind of a stuck marriage combination.
Arranged marriage?
No, this was in Philadelphia.
Oh.
And a more appropriate way would be saying something along the line of, when you get married, make sure it's with somebody you love. Don't get married just for monetary reasons. Don't get, talk about the situation. Don't sit there and predict to an 18-year-old girl who's, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's great that he could see that. And it's a straight-on combination. But it's definitely not the thing to just blurt out. It needs to be said properly. So that's my note on sensitivity. Because, as you see, we're beginning to learn how to see all kinds of things.
So if you have malefics in the second house, you have to watch out for this
More than others? I think you got to watch out for it no matter what. Some of the stuff.
Is there a tendency more with malefics in the second?
Malefics is more how you say it. But this is more at the level of, as we begin to learn to see all these things in a chart. Imagine you look at a guy's chart and you can tell he's a rapist. You don't sit there and say, "Oh, you're a rapist." You have to come across it in a different way. You got to be like, I think your problem is you're being a bit too, pushy and violent with women, and you're getting into, there's a way to present the information that should be sensitive to who you're dealing with. And I'll tell you what, when the moon's in the 8th house, no matter how sensitive you try and be, they'll still have an issue with it. But sensitivity. Note on sensitivity. Always remember sensitivity. And I've said it, so my karma's free if you're not sensitive. Number 6. Look at the Atmakaraka and Aruda lagna. So who's his Atmakaraka? Venus. So we see Venus there. What's Venus Atmakaraka mean?
He likes to play musical instruments.
What else?
Art and beauty.
His soul wants to be creative and around beautiful things, creating beautiful things.
At a soul level, he's very creative, likes art, so we have to understand the soul of the person. What makes their soul happy? If they're in a drab place that doesn't have art on the walls, they're going to be very sad in a deep level. Then we look at the other Charakaras in the chart, and we see Charakaraka, Mercury. We know Mercury's in the 8th house, right? We don't have to look. We know. We just see Charakaraka, Mercury. We know, that Mercury's in the 8th house. So we know that Mercury is a planet of learning. It's young. It's playful. At the same time, it's not the most well-placed. So that gives us a little insight into the mother's inner nature, into the mother's soul. Then we look at Charakaraka, Jupiter. We know that Jupiter is in this, it's exalted, but, retrograde. There's this deep desire with it happening. But it's a very learned, smart planet. So we know that the father is a very, learned person, but there's a reversal that's happening. There's a different, where his soul wants to be and where it really is. There's something happening at that level.
There's also a Charakaraka replacement.
We haven't got there yet. We're step by step. So Charakaraka is moon, and we see moons in the 6th house. Charakaraka represents brothers and sisters. And it's the moon, which is a relatively friendly planet, but it's in the 6th house, so a little enmity. So on a soul level, like how well he's going to get along with the brothers and sisters, they have a lot of, stirring up, and there's, stuff happening inside of them that they're working through. So we're understanding the atmas in his life when we look at these Charakarakas. Okay? Make sure we get the Darakaraka, Rahu. So that inner nature of his partner is a little, crazy. Not very focused, scattered all over. At a soul level. This is an inside level. We have to really differentiate outside level, inside level. And then we look at the, we can look at Charakaraka replacement real fast. Are any of these the same degree? 14, right? So it means Pitrakaraka and Putrakaraka. Oh, okay. Get replaced. There's a Charakaraka replacement there. And we're not going to go too into that right now. But we talked a little bit about that in the Karaka section handout. So we notice this and we notice what that means.
There's another one.
20 and 20. Amachakaraka and Brachakaraka. Amachakaraka are the people that give him advice. Brachakaraka is the guru, so we see that there'll be a change, in the early part of his life, he's going to go to older people for advice. And because it's Saturn till he hits his mid-30s. Saturn matures at 35. So until mid-30s, he'll be going to older people to get advice. Then we see this switch happening, and Moon becomes the next, because Moon is the same degree under. Moon becomes the Amachakaraka. So he begins seeking motherly figures for advice in his life after he hits his mid-30s. So we just take this into account.
Is this all true, Eric?
No.
He's not 35 yet.
He's not 35 yet. But at the moment, he's taking his advice from older people because it's Saturn.
Is that true? Sometimes.
I can't disagree with you because then
That's the mood.
He's trapped.
And then we look at Aruda lagna. So you see, there's actually 2 hidden in here. This is one of your nostrils.
Oh.
There's 14 plus 2 hidden. For real, there's 2 hidden in here. 14 steps with 2 nostrils hidden in there. So the Aruda lagna. Did you write Aruda lagna in there?
Yeah.
Oh, it's right there. I always write Aruda lagna in red. So Aruda lagna is right here with Rahu and Saturn. The Aruda lagna shows how you're perceived by other people. Rahu and Saturn are conjunct as Aruda lagna. How's he perceived by other people? Serious?
A little weird.
Weird? What do you think?
Yeah, kind of nutty.
Kind of nutty?
Strong-willed and like persevering or something.
It's a curse, this combination. So he's considered cursed by most people. Someone who suffers.
Huh. I didn't see
It's not how you see him after you get to know him. It's how he is perceived in general by society.
Like an outcast?
With that combination? I mean, he's got a wool blanket wrapped around him right now, you know, shaggy beard, and, you know, it's just...
Depends on who you ask.
He's not looking like a businessman that wears a suit.
Probably get checked at the airport.
No, I never get checked the airport.
Yeah.
But he looks like somebody who would get checked at the airport.
So it's all my computer, so country
Yeah.
you're in.
Sarkawi.
But it's very, yes, that's, now also look at the other Arudas happening in the chart at this point. We see A7 is in the 4th house with Jupiter. A7 is the Aruda of the 7th house, showing love, the manifestation of love, partners. In the 4th house, so when he has we see A4, we see the UL is in the 8th house with Mercury. Some debt relative to marriage. Well, married because of he feels he owes something to the partner.
Is that because it's in the 8th?
Yeah. And if you look from the Aruda lagna, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the Upapada is 4th from the Aruda lagna. The A4 is 4th from the Aruda lagna. 5, 6. 6 from the Aruda lagna is the A3 and A6, which is fine. 7th is that the A9?
A9 looks like it's in the 11th house.
Yeah, A9. It's 7th though. We're looking at these from the Aruda lagna and the relationship. You see what the person's social relationship with people is from this level. Where the Arudas are placed from the Aruda lagna is giving us what the social relationship is. So we see it's on the 4th, so on a social level, he acts very friendly with his mother, and A4 is mother. A5 is children. It's 9th from it. So from a social level, like once he has kids, which this is going to, and unless he remedies this, he won't be able to have kids. But if he has kids, because that's 9th from it, his kids almost become his advisors, teachers. This is 9th from it. So in this way, we see the external relationship he has with people, and from the Atmakarakas, we see the internal reality of the people in his life. We look at the Atmakaraka. Okay, that's all we'll do there.
We haven't looked at his Navamsha.
What's the next thing? We'll get to Navamsha. Curses and blessings. So we got a concept of who the Atma is. We know it's Venus. We know art makes him happy inside. So we're starting to get a feel for this guy, aren't we? Do you feel how we're starting to get to know him? We got to get to know him this way. We got to get to know him through the chart so that it comes alive before we start talking about it. Curses and blessings. How do we see a curse?
Two or more malefics aspecting or conjunct a house or planet. Is that a house?
A house?
Mm-hmm. And so, no, it's a curse there just because it's of the planets. But, so does the moon have 2 or more malefics aspecting it?
No.
No.
Sun and
Jupiter?
Mars.
Huh?
No.
Sun and Mars aspect. Oh, Graha Drishti.
Only Graha Drishti, right?
Yeah, only Graha Drishti for curses.
2 or more. No.
Any benefic have 2 or more malefics?
Now what about a house like the 11th house? Is there that house cursed because it's got 2 malefics?
You could say it's afflicted, but it's not cursed.
The 11th house?
Now can houses be
Nope.
cursed like
Rahu and Saturn
Oh.
are aspecting it. So it's afflicted. It's not particularly cursed. because a house is an area of life. So it's like, can you say his earning is cursed?
Well, you can say his fifth house is cursed.
He has a curse in his fifth house.
Okay. But those planets aren't cursed particularly because it's the house.
A curse is carried by a person.
Mm-hmm.
Persons are represented by grahas.
Okay.
So a place can be afflicted, but in general a place isn't cursed. Though we do occasionally see, some Native American guy curse the mountain that anybody that comes there has to come back. So there are places that are cursed.
Okay.
But in general, on the natural level, it's people that carry curses, and people are planets. Places are signs and houses. Right?
Okay, so the something in the past relating to his paternal side or whatever. You said Petri.
Okay, yeah. Let's not go into it.
I'm just
So
trying
right
to understand. It's the it still seems like it's the house. The fifth house because those planets are only aspected by one other malefic. Saturn's
What do you
only
mean?
aspected by one
K2?
malefic, and you don't count K2 as a.
No.
Okay.
It's a curse because they're two Badak
Together.
planets. It's a double Badak. It's a higher concept.
Okay.
Badakesh for Aries lagna is Saturn and Rahu, and so both Badakesh are conjunct
Okay.
in the fifth house. Because they're in the fifth house, it's showing Pitri Badak dosha.
Okay.
It's it's as we know, there's a billion yogas. So
Yeah, does Rahu aspect fifth from itself?
5 and 9 from it.
Okay, so
5 and 9.
Rahu aspecting and Saturn aspecting a planet would create a curse
To that planet.
to that planet. If it was just to the house and there was no planet in the house, then that would.
Then the house is afflicted.
It's just an afflicted house.
You wouldn't call it a cursed house. You'd call it an afflicted house.
Okay.
Just terminology.
All right.
It's a weak house because of its affliction. Nothing is afflicted here. I mean, nothing is cursed here. But there is a curse. It's a different type of curse. If there was something cursed, and I wanted to talk about curses in this section. For example, if Rahu was here and Saturn was here,
Would be the moon.
then the moon would be cursed. If a curse is in a Dushtana house, 6, 8, or 12, if you said...
There's an evil to there's something bad that's because the moon is in the sixth house.
Well, the thing is, when you see what makes you curse is when you do something bad. You beat somebody in one life, and that pain that they suffered is your curse in the next life. If you cause somebody a large amount of sorrow and they suffered because of you, then that's your curse. That's your Saturn aspect in this life.
Mm.
It's the sorrow that you caused them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say you're driving down the road and you run somebody over by accident. You killed them. You're going to have that karma in your next life. But that's a curse that you didn't do it. You didn't kill them on purpose. So, because you didn't do it on purpose, the curse is going to show up in an angle or a trine. And once you get over it, there'll be some benefit that comes from it. When the curse is in a Dushtana, you ran that person over on purpose. And there's no getting out of the karma that goes along with it. Even when you do the remedy, there'll still be affliction coming from it. So some
What
people...
about if you kill somebody in self-defense?
Then it'll be, you'll still get the curse of killing them. But it'll be in a place, it'll be in a benefic house in your next life. You didn't want them You didn't go maliciously
It's
trying
always
to
in
kill
the
them.
next life.
In general.
Well,
I
what do
mean,
you
unless
tell
you
a person-
atone for it in this life somehow.
What would you tell a person if you saw this? You just ignore it, or
You give them palliative remedies. Like, there was a woman that she has every malefic aspecting Jupiter in the 6th house. And she anytime a dasha comes up of one of those malefics, suffering comes. And so, there's certain mantras that she has that help alleviate some of that suffering. But it'll only alleviate so much. And it's going to come back the next dasha. Where a curse in a better house, you're going to suffer from it. You either, go through the suffering, or you do the remedy, and then after that it turns into a blessing. You learn something from it. Maybe you broke your arm and you can't do yoga for a year, but all of a sudden, because you didn't do yoga with your arms, you only worked on your legs for the whole year, and you developed this whole new, deeper understanding of, so a curse in a good house, in the end, gives you a blessing. A curse in a dushtana, you suffer it, goes away, and then you suffer it again later. There's no blessing that's coming out of it, because it was done with a negative intention. It wasn't done accidentally, where the karma's just, you gotta pay for your karma, but at the same time, you don't have to suffer the same level from it. When we see a curse, there's also 3 factors that make a curse really something that you suffer from. And we don't have an example in this chart. Do we have an example in any of these? What do we have cursed over here?
I have one.
Well, do we have one that we can visually see is what I'm... Mercury's aspected by Rahu. Moon is 2. Does Moon have... Nope. Okay, here we have a cursed Jupiter. We see Mars is opposite, aspecting it, right? 1 malefic. And then we have Saturn, 1, 2, 3. Okay?
Oh, no, it's first one.
Right? Okay, so there's a curse of Jupiter, curse of a Brahmin. So it means in a previous life, he caused Mars is violence. He did some violence to a Brahmin that made the Brahmin get angry. Hurt the Brahmin in some way. And Saturn, he caused a Brahmin, a spiritual person, sorrow. And because of that sorrow, because of that violence, he has this curse of Jupiter. Okay? We look, is the Atmakaraka involved? Is Atmakaraka? Saturn. Here we already knew what we would know. Is Venus involved? We would already know because we analyzed that, right? So, and the Atmakaraka is Saturn. So Saturn is causing the curse. So because the Atmakaraka is involved, he's going to feel it at an Atma level. He's going to feel it deep. It's going to be a real suffering. Is the 8th Lord involved? 8th Lord is Venus. Venus is not involved. So it means there won't be any... the feeling... the 8th Lord shows you really feel like you're paying back a debt. You're suffering, like you owe, some suffering. Atmakaraka involved, you feel a soul level suffering. And then we look at Lagnesh. If the Lagnesh is involved, then you physically endure the suffering. And in this chart, we see ASC, ascendant here. And so that's the lagna right here. So it's in the lagna. So yes, there is physical level suffering caused by the curse. Okay? Now, there's 3 things we look at to get out of the curse. 1, we look at, and it's on the chart here, page 8. In the chart on page 8, we look at the Bhava, we look at the Bhavesha, and we look at the Bhavakaraka. Bhava is the house, Bhavesha is the house lord, Bhavakaraka is the significator of the house. So we look at the house and we see, is there any benefic aspect to the house? Moon's 12th from it. Venus isn't aspecting. Mercury, it's not aspecting, it's 6 from it. But the Lord is Jupiter. So, one remedy, Jupiter, because Jupiter's a benefic, Jupiter could help us get out. But let's look at the house lord. The house lord is... Who's the house lord there?
Who's the house lord?
Who's the house lord of Jupiter?
Well, is that Mercury? I'm not sure if that's the right way of reading that chart. Is that...
Aries, Taurus, Aries, Pisces. So it's
Jupiter's Jupiter.
So it's Jupiter. Yeah. So the house lord is Jupiter, but Jupiter's cursed. So it's not fully able to help the person out. The next thing we look at is Bhavakaraka. Who's the Bhavakaraka of the lagna? Who's the Karaka for the lagna?
Sun.
Sun, that's right. So is the sun in a decent place? Huh? In the 5th house? In Cancer. Think the sun can help him out?
Sun is in...
Well, it's a trine,
It's trying. It's not afflicted, is it? So the sun is the way out of the curse. Sun in the 5th house. So either a form of Shiva or a form of Rama or however we go into that. But the sun is going to be the remedy to get out of the curse. So this is when we see a curse, we got to look at these 3 things. If the sun was also in the 6th or 8th house or under some affliction, is there a way out? So the thing is, the remedy lies in these things, these 3 areas. The house itself is something uplifting the house that we can use to get out of the curse. The sign Lord, can the sign Lord get us out of the curse? Or the Bhavakaraka, can that get us out of the curse? Now in this case, because it's in lagna, every time the curse gets activated, it's going to cause physical suffering. So it's going to cause health problems. So that means the sun is a very important planet to get this person out of health problems. Okay? Very important to be able to understand how to get out of a curse. There's more there that can be read.
So if it acts as a benefic in aspect to the curse, that's the remedy?
That planet is the remedy. Then we talk more in remedies about how to actually use the sun. But the sun is going to be the one indicating the remedy. Okay. Then number 8, Panchanga Lords. So let's look at this. We're back to Eric's chart.